Today we are talking about value, so you need to make sure you get your name on the top of this side of the paper. We are just going to use pencil today to begin, and I want you to try to match this value scale and try to figure out how you make a color darker with just pencil and how you make it lighter with just pencil. On the side it does talk about a shade is when a color is mixed with black, a hue is just its color, and a tint is when you add white. But how can you do that with just pencil? As you filled in that first value scale, you probably noticed two things. Value in a pencil is controlled by how hard you press. It's also kind of controlled about how much space you leave in your coloring. If you want a dark value, you want to color it solid. If you want a lighter value, you might see some of the white through. As you flip over your paper, don't worry about your name, but I am going to introduce to you some different ways of adding value instead of just coloring. So we're going to go down the list one by one, and you will have an opportunity to try some different ways of adding value. Hatching is just lines. So I want you in just a minute to try using lines to show value. So I'm pressing light. In the second box I'm pressing a little bit harder, and I might even have a couple more lines. In this first one there's a lot of spaces. I press even harder in the third box, and I'm squeezing in some more lines, meaning it almost looks like I'm starting to color that box in. This one my lines get even closer and they're starting to touch and maybe even overlap, and I'm pressing hard. And in my last one I am not coloring, I'm still thinking about just using lines, but all of my lines are touching. So I would like you to try hatching. Cross-hatching is our next one, and as some of you have guessed, cross-hatching is just going two different directions, making it look like X's or crosses all over that box. Just like hatching, as you go darker, you're pressing a little bit harder, and your lines are getting closer together. So you have more lines. Go ahead and fill in your cross-hatching row. My next box is scribbles. Really lightly I'm filling in that shape like I would when I was probably 3 years old. Little bit darker in the next one, pushing even harder in the third, filling in that shape a little bit more. Go ahead and try using scribbles to add value. Really hard in that last one. Zig Zags is similar. Your Zig Zags can go either direction. Mine are going across if you want your Zig Zags up and down. I am pressing light and I barely have any Zig Zags. In my next box I'm pressing a little harder. Might squeeze in another row of Zig Zags, or maybe they're just bigger and touching. By the third one my Zig Zags are starting to overlap and I'm pressing pretty hard. By my last one, my box is filled. At this point, my guess is you might need to exchange pencils, or you might need to get a new pencil because my lead is getting pretty dull. Stippling is the noisy one. So stippling is dots. So that first box I might not have very many dots. I might have a few more in the next one. They're getting closer together. So this is the only time you're allowed to make music with your pencil in the art room. The third one is full of dots. By 4 and 5, your hand is probably going to get sore from adding so many dots. Some of you might enjoy this. Some of you are probably thinking, I am never going to add value like this to a drawing. We have one more after this row that we will be working on, so I will give you a little time to finish this one up. Circles. And I am showing you circles, but you could really use any shape to add value. So my circles are big and light. Think about it from maybe seeing these circles from a really far distance. In my next box I have more circles and they're a little darker. In the third box my circles are really getting smaller so I can squeeze more in and it's getting darker. By my fourth one, it looks like I'm zooming in on this value. Maybe it's the scales of a lizard or a fish, and I'm getting really close to it. By the fifth one, they're super tiny and super dark. At the bottom of this page, you get to invent your own. So you can use a combination of any of these ideas, or you can just invent something totally different. I'm thinking about some scribble crosshatching. Darker and darker as I go, more and more scribbles as I get to the end of the lines. There you have it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different ways to add value besides just coloring.